I think a lot of people are going to have trouble with this question. Something about it just feels like all these words for most of you are going to be very kind of bland and not have a lot of difference in the choices. So let's take a look here. As always, we go to the passage first. Let's see if we can understand it. Scholarly discussions of gender in Shakespeare's comedies often celebrate the rebellion of the playwright's characters, so rebellion against the rigid expectations, something by Elizabethan society. Most of the comedies end in marriage with characters returning to their socially dictated gender roles. Now, to me, that is them clearly repeating themselves. They're trying to say this is what the blank is supposed to mean. So they're returning to those socially dictated gender roles after previously defining them, but there are some notable exceptions. So what they're saying here is the rigid expectations, the roles, the ideas are dictated to you. So that's kind of what's going here. It's dictated by society. Now, we might think of like a dictator who's kind of ordering the subjects around. That's kind of what's going on here, but it's more like the society as a whole is kind of forcing you to do something you might not want to do. So if you go to the choices, if you have a clear idea of what you're looking for, you might be able to get it just by eliminating the words you know and then settling for one you don't. So interject, you interject by interrupting. So that's not really what's going on here. So interjected is interrupted. The expectations are interrupted by Elizabethan society. No, the expectations, the gender roles come from the society. So it's not like something's being interrupted. That just doesn't make sense. This is where I think a lot of people are going to pick the wrong answer. B, committed. A society does not commit an expectation. That doesn't really make sense. And I don't really know how to say it otherwise than just like this is not a usage of this word that we say. So sometimes when you're doing these vocab questions, it really just is words have different definitions and only one definition makes sense. Sometimes definition isn't necessarily the way to think about it. It's more about what we might call usage, in that words that have similar definitions might not be interchangeable. So here maybe we're getting to that. It just doesn't make sense to say that a whole society commits an expectation. They maybe have an expectation, but to commit is more like an action, something you do, and it just doesn't fit here. So I think this is a little bit of a trap. I just think it's what most of you are going to pick. Maybe even C is like this too because it's a more familiar word. The expectations are illustrated by Elizabethan society. You might be thinking, oh, well, the society, the people in it, they're kind of showing it. They're, when the men and the women behave certain ways, they're illustrating what that society's rules are for gender. But no, that doesn't really work here. Like you would say that, a teacher kind of illustrates a point by drawing a diagram or something like that. But it doesn't, again, make sense here. The word that we need is prescribed because we really do use this word prescribed when it comes to rules. Rules are prescribed by society, meaning they're set down, they're set in stone, they are dictated. These are things that you have to follow, even if it's not necessarily like a law. So I get why a lot of you are going to get this wrong. This is the hard section, so be ready for some hard questions. But D is definitely the answer. It's a word that if you've encountered it before, you've almost certainly encountered it in similar situations to this, where a society has prescribed rules that the members of that society are expected to follow. So hopefully that just kind of sticks in your head, and that idea, that usage, these words tend to orbit around each other. That's a lot of the times how I think about vocabulary, is I don't necessarily memorize a definition. I more kind of make connections between certain words and certain ideas so that when I see the word or see the idea, I can say, okay, this is a good match. It's a hard question. So if you got it wrong, don't worry too much about it.